Okay, everybody. Well, welcome to my new YouTube channel called Renaissance Gardening and Cooking. I do know a lot about gardening and a decent amount about cooking, but not much about video, so this is probably going to be a little rough. At some point, I do intend on being in the videos myself, but I have a face that's more suited to radio, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I thought that I'd start off my inaugural video with a tour of my little garden, and then as the season progresses, you can see how it's progressed and how all the different systems work together. So I'm just going to give you a real quick little walking tour. Basically my big black grill cover things there, and there's a fig plant. Over there is an asparagus bed, and I also have a little area that I'll probably grow glass gem corn. So as we walk in to the garden, I practice no-dig composting, so none of my gardens ever really get dug. They get covered with leaves in the fall, and I'll show that. And then in the spring, I rake the leaves up, which is what I'm doing today. I'll show you how I'm preparing a potato bed, and I cover them with some compost that I made the year before. So these are my beds. This bed contains blueberry bushes, and these poles right here, I'm actually going to be building some bird netting over there that I can easily get on and off, and I'll have a video just about that. So in the back there, we have some blackberries. This is an empty bed, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what I have in everything. I can augment this video later to kind of show that. So over here is another bed. This bed is going to have tomatoes along the front right there. The sun kind of goes from that way over towards the chickens, and I'll talk in a minute about how they fit into all this. So I'll have a line of tomatoes right there. I'll be growing indeterminate tomatoes, so they'll be growing up on a trellis. They'll get pretty high. And then behind that, I will have lettuces. And the reason I'm doing it that way is because in the spring, lettuces are fine, but as the summer progresses, they'll need some cover and some shade, and I'm hoping that the tomatoes will provide that shade. I have a little bed right there that last year I grew a green called Claytonia. I may or may not do that again. That bed over there will be a ton of different kinds of peppers. I'm introducing Asian chilies this year because I do a lot of Asian cooking, and I'm sure I'll have a video specifically on using those Asian chilies in cooking. And they'll be interspersed with a few things like a couple different lettuces, some spices, a couple broccoli plants. The little bed right there is going to be used for potatoes, and the big bed right here is also going to be used for potatoes, and I'm in the middle of preparing that, but that's why I thought I'd do this video real quick. These trees that you see here are a mini orchard that I just put in. So I have these two are peach trees. I have two apple trees over there, and that is a nectarine. And I also have some grapes. I just haven't decided where I'm going to put them in this whole mess. This bed right here with the white panels on them is actually my garlic bed, and I don't know if you can see that, but the garlic is actually coming up in there. I have about 140-ish plants planted, and I had to put this sort of protection around there because the chickens have lately figured out how to escape out of their little holding area, and the very first thing they did was in and dug up all my garlic. So luckily the garlic's growing fine, so they didn't do too much damage. So over here, this bed is going to be onions. I'll be getting some onion sets, but as you can see, it's full of lettuce. And now this lettuce, and there's some carrots at the end, and there's some beets there. This has been growing all winter, or I've been harvesting it all winter. So by using this hinged hoop house, I was able to grow the vegetables so that they got to a certain, like a harvest size in like by October-ish, mid-October. And then with the hinged hoop house, they basically just were able to grow all year. And you can see like the kale's really starting to take off, and some of the things are actually starting to see, little one back there, starting to flower and bolt. And today they're looking a tad raggedy because this is the first day that they're really getting whacked with the sun. So as we walk down here, you can see some beets down there, some carrots over here, and some tatsoi here. I'm going to be doing some stir fry tonight, so the majority of this tatsoi is going to end up in that. I have this little bed back here that last year I grew cucamelons in it. This year I'm going to be growing snow peas. And then over here, I think that bed actually is going to be full of peas as well. So I have raspberries growing over here. They're cut down to the ground this year because that's what you do with those. These are floricane, I believe they're called. So the raspberries grow on 1 year growth every year. And then interspersed or underneath the raspberries, the blackberries, and the blueberries, I also have strawberries planted. And I have a little bed there that I'll probably grow some shallots or some scallions in. And then right over here, that little area between the two different fruit beds, I will be growing cabbage. This bed will be Napa cabbage and squash. So that's all it. And then over here, I have my tomatoes. I mean, my chickens. Chickens, tomatoes, you know, it's easy to confuse. I started raking up some of the leaves today from the bed, so I threw that in there for them to go through. You can see they've already started putting a hurting on my compost bin. And as a matter of fact, I think if I do this, you will see them in the compost bin. Well, they don't seem to like that very much. Anyway, I have 3 chickens, and they are part of this system. That's their chicken coop right there. And you see, here are my 3 compost bins that I built. I'm a big believer in making a ton of compost. And the back of the hen house, those 2 large doors right there, opens up right onto the compost bins. So when I clean the hen house out, it goes literally right into the compost bins. All the garden waste from the garden also goes in there. When I cut the grass, it goes in there. Leaves from all these trees go in there. I do keep some of the leaves and shred. You can see the beds here are covered with shredded leaves in the fall. That brings up the earthworms and helps me to really be able to keep the beds in like a ground cover state. So it's all basically a system. And then when I'm done with all my garden waste, plants and things like that, I'll throw it in piles in here and let the chicken coop or the chickens really go through it. If you've ever seen the Back to Eden garden with Paul Gauci, this is exactly what he does. He allows his chickens to break down a lot of his yard waste, and they create great compost for him that he uses to grow his annuals in. A lot of people think that all he uses is wood chips, but he grows his annuals in those type of things. So here's my potato bed. It did look like those beds over there, covered with shredded leaves, until about 20 minutes ago. And I raked the leaves up, and I thought this would be a great first video to do. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm taking my compost, you can see a bucket of it right here, and I'm adding that into that bed. And then I'm going to basically rake it all across here. So I'm going to pause the video at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get all the compost on there, and then I'll show you that before we go and plant the potatoes. Oh, this was covered, like I said, with shredded leaves. And the reason I do that is because it brings up the earthworms, and the earthworms will then go ahead and really fertilize this whole space and keep it very fertile. I don't believe in ever digging the soil. So this is just compost that I've been building and piling on for a couple years. Initially it was composted horse manure and mushroom compost. And so I will see you in a minute or two. Well, I am in the middle of digging the compost that I need for the potatoes. And I thought I would just show that I do let the chickens have full access to the compost because they help me stir it up. And you see they'll eat some of the stuff that I want, but they'll also eat some of the stuff I don't want, like seeds and grubs, little grubs and things like that. So, and they will do what they do in there, and that'll help provide a little bit more oxygen. So I have my Rhode Island Red, my black Astralorp, and then over here, kind of hidden, I have my little cutie pie. She's actually a Cornish cross, which is a meat chicken. Let's just say that there was a whole lot more of them, but she was just too darn cute, so she graduated to the egg laying club. See you in a minute. All right, so I'm back. I just put down a nice fresh, maybe 2 to 3 inch layer of compost. Literally, I just dropped the rake, and Rosie and Astro jumped in there and found it, but I'm going to kick them out of there pretty soon. And once I get like potatoes in the ground and things, I mean, unless I want to build one of these little structures around all the beds, the chickens won't be welcome until the plants get a little bit big. You can see that Astra's a big fan of greens. And there goes Rosie. So they're going to get themselves some nice fresh greens, which is fine. I mean, I have plenty. And all this stuff has to come out in about a week or two because my Walla Walla onion starts will be showing up. That's a Claytonia there. I have all kinds of mustards and kale and some butter crunch. Just fantastic. And we have been harvesting this all winter long. And we're in, zone 7 in New Jersey, and we had probably 2 or 3 feet of snow this year. So this is very, very doable. And the chickens seem to not mind it either. But she's starting to dig in there, so I'm going to get them out. Anyway, so I prepared all this, and now what I'm going to do is plant my potatoes. Last year I planted them sort of square foot garden method, and I gave them all about a foot. I think that was a little tight, so this year I'm going to give them each about 18 inches between the rows and then between each individual plant. So I'm going to do there. I also have to get that little bed ready for potatoes, because I'm going to use that for potatoes as well. I will see you again in a moment. Now, a quick note about chickens. I love chickens, and I think every garden should have chickens in it. One thing about chickens, though, you got to watch your beds, because if they get in there, they are destructive. You see there's a sage plant there that probably won't make it through this little feather dusting. I mean, like I said, all this stuff is coming out soon anyway, so I don't care. But I took my eyes off of her for just a couple minutes, and she jumped in here and started to give herself a nice dust bath, which is as cute as can be. But any plants that happen to be under there, forget about it. Plus, within a day, they would probably eat a good majority of these greens given the opportunity. So, a quick note about chickens. All right, so here are my seed potatoes. You can see they've got some nice sprouts on them, also called chits, C-H-I-T. And so I have, these are Red Norland, those are Yukon Gold, and those are a blue potato. I forget exactly what they're called. So you see I cut some of these in some pretty small pieces. So you can see that they're still growing fine, so you don't actually have to plant a whole potato. I might have went a little overboard with the Yukons, and we'll see. They don't look so great, but anyway, the rest of them do. So I'm going to get to planting, and the way I'm going to know how far to plant them is you see these nails in my bed here. Those are every 12 inches for square foot gardening, because I ran twine across here to create a grid on this bed. So I'll just kind of figure out from that sort of an 18-inch spacing. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to make them a little bit more spaced than last year. See you in a minute. Alrighty, so I have spaced my potatoes out here. They're roughly 18 inches apart. I measure them with a tape measure real quick. I also threw some in the small bed. I had a lot of the Red Norland, and I did them kind of a lot tighter, sort of a little experiment. And I'll compare those to these and see if I can really get some kind of at least anecdotal information. Now, planting potatoes. Really no rocket science to it. Let's see if I can do this and film at the same time. It's very sunny out here, so I can hardly even see what I'm doing. So I basically just dig a hole that the potato can go in. You put the potato in said hole and you cover it. Now, there's all kinds of depths and all kinds of, I'm sure someone will say, well, you should X, Y, Z, but I've always done it very simple like this, and it seems to work. Now, I had mentioned the Back to Eden video, and if you haven't seen that, you should. Paul Gauci, what he does, and what I'm going to do this year, is when he harvests his potatoes, he'll take the biggest potato from that plant and pop it right back in the ground, let it overwinter, and then grow potatoes that way the next year. I'm going to do that because that works. That's like super easy, so that would be a great thing to experiment with. Okay, I'm going to turn this off now and go plant the rest of these, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, well, the sun is so bright I actually can't really even see what I'm filming, but I think I can get this. So that is the potato bed is all planted. I have, let's see, it's probably 10 per row, 3 rows, so there's 30 in there, another 7 or 8 in there. You can see my little chickie chick is still over there enjoying her dust bath. Because I had some extra potatoes and I wanted to have some fun, I thought I would do a couple other things. So I also put some in this tub right here. This is just leaf mulch, well, leaf compost really. So we'll see how they grow in there. And then I have this area over here that I use mainly for storage of stuff. You see my dirt's there, my flower pots and other things. And I've been wanting to know how much sun, or if this gets enough sun to grow. So I also put a bin of the potatoes here. The ones in both bins are the Red Norland. So that is it from today from the Renaissance Garden. I hope you all have a great day and enjoy this video.